Okay, so you can see in my blues I have 6 different blues. So when I sat down to sketch this out, bearing in mind with a 4-inch block that I'm going to use, I'm going to have 15 blocks across and then 20 blocks down. All these multicolors is just to differentiate for me, and the pattern has nothing to do with the actual color of the quilt. So, but because it is a 15 by 20, my center was either going to be 2 little ones here or the 6. And the way I sketched it out, it's going to end up being 6 in the center. So I'm going to use one of each of these right in the center. And then on the outside of that, it's going to make little diamonds almost, kind of. Because of the 20 by 15, instead of being points, you're going to have doubles here. So it's almost like a reflection of what's going on at the bottom. It's going to reflect at the top as well. Instead of being just a tight diamond, you're going to have the 2 on the sides instead of a point. But I was able to sketch that out. So now what I'm going to be able to do is assign a number to each color. Make sure that I can get that number of squares. And I should be on a quilt this size with all of this fabric. So what I'm going to do though is go ahead and let's say this is going to be number 1. I'll figure out where number 1 is going to fall on the full squares. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that many squares. I want to get all my squares cut because in the corners, as you can see, I'm going to use half square triangles. So I don't want to cut any of those until I get this part done. Because this part, it's important that I do have enough of my squares ready to go. The leftovers is how I'll create my half square triangles. So they may be a little patchier, whereas this is going to create a pattern in the center. So that's kind of how I work with it. I use my colored pencils. I sit down and I just start sketching. You can use grid paper. I just printed this off of an Excel spreadsheet because I wanted the squares a little bit bigger. And there's some more of my sketches. So I have these all over the house. As a matter of fact, here's one I was sketching out to use with the flannel cloth because it is in fall colors, and I think it would be pretty to have this all patchy, all those little squares, but then put in the fall colored leaves on top. So just something I'm thinking about with the flannel. Okay, so we're going to lay that aside, and I'm going to go ahead and assign my numbers, and I'm going to start cutting these into squares. Okay, just to update you where we're at, I've cut out all the squares, and I've already laid this out on the floor, and I've got my rows pinned together. And then I was going to do all of my half square triangles for the corners, and that was becoming a problem to get them enough of each one to match. Remember how I told you you're limited when you're using shirts if you don't have 2 of the same shirt, for example, and I didn't. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is just making additional squares, but keeping this diamond pattern going. It's almost like a trip around the world. So I've got those marked off here, how many I needed. For example, right here in this corner, I knew that was going to be 7, so I would need 28 of that block. So I've got 28 of this block. And then the same here that I would need 24. I've got 24 of this one. So what I'll do now is unpin my rows and add these. And the next time you see me, we'll be at the sewing machine starting to put it together. Okay, so I have row 1 laid out here to start sewing on. And I made sure that when I got to the center point, which is the 8th square, that the 9th through the 15th was the mirror image of these. So I also just took a snapshot of the first half of it in case I got confused, and I'm going to try not to, sew it wrong. So we're going to start out here with the first two. Okay, row 1 is done, and I did get my phone out and just double check it to make sure that everything was right. And we're going to go ahead and lay row 2 out. Okay, row 2 is done, so we're going to go ahead and connect rows 1 and 2. Okay, so you can see here is the center, and it's splitting out this way. Everything is as it should be, going to the left, and then over here everything is going to the right as it should. So I'm going to go ahead and grab row 3. Alright, so a tip for you: if you are sewing a pattern and you're sewing it by row, once you have these laid out, what I like to do is go ahead and lay them out like they would be in the row. Oops. On the very end, I go ahead and pin. On the very end, I go ahead and pin what row number it is. And then, let me make sure you can see everything here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is lay this one over on top of it so that I know the way it needs to be sewn. So I could literally pick that up and just pull it over and sew it and not have to question it. And I'm going to do the same with the next two. Just going to go ahead and turn that right over and put it in line to be the next one sewn. And get used to doing it this way instead of just picking up two and flipping them over, because if you have patterned pieces, that might mess it up if you pick it up and try to just flip it over. That one. Also, I've been very conscious about this one being straight up and down. Or if you started out with it horizontal, that would be fine too. I just wanted to keep it the same through the whole quilt. Okay, So now I know I can pick one up at a time and they're going to stay in the right order for me. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these together. Okay, now this part is equally as important. You're going to pull these back. You want to keep it laying like this with your sewn seam to the right, because if it flips like that, it's all of a sudden wrong. This is on the wrong side of your seam. So make sure that you keep all your seams running the same way for the sake of the pattern. Now if it's a patchwork quilt, it is not going to matter. Right? The next thing I do is I slide it straight over without taking it off the table to mess up the turn. And these two will be together. These two. These two. And because I had an odd number, this is going to be at the end of the last one. Okay, so now all I have to do is open these up just like they were laying beside each other and flip them over. And then pull them straight over to the machine. I'm going to grab the next two. Open them up just like they would have been laying beside each other and flip the top one over. Or I'm sorry, I flipped the right one over. And again, the one on the left gets opened up. The one on the right you can open up and then lay it right on top. This keeps your pattern without you having to worry about it. And then this one, because it's an odd number across, when you open it up, you just have the one left that you need to sew. Same thing, you're going to pull these over, keeping everything in line with the seam to the right. The first one is the one that goes to the far left, so it goes over here. Then we're going to attach this one to it, and then the last two. So again, open up the one on the left, and then the one beside it. We're going to open and then lay over. And then this one we're going to open the next one and lay on top. And now this one we want to open up. And then when we open this one, we're going to just fold it right over the top. We've almost got a row made. It's very methodical because you're repeating and repeating. Okay, so when you open this up, your first, it's going to be hard for you to see everything, but the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are going to be repeated after the center one here, the 8th one. It's the mirror image of what you just sewed together. So we're ready now to attach this and finish the first quilt top. So I'll see you back. Okay, we have the quilt sewn together. Obviously too big to show you here at the machine. I'm going to try to find a place to hang it up and get a good picture of it. Hey guys, sorry for the lighting where I had to hang this up, but I wanted you to see the finished product. You can see the pattern looks really good. I did add one thing that I forgot about, and that's down here in the corner. I pulled his name, embroidered name, off of a shirt and added it to one of the squares. So that's just something else that you can do. But anyway, it's going to be several months before I actually get into quilting this, because I do want to get all of the quilt tops done first. So we'll do a last check-in when everything is done. But meanwhile, I'll see you guys back here for the next one.